The diagram shows a typical blockchain-enabled trade finance business scenario and the information of goods flow. In this lab, we first built a consortium blockchain with only three organizations called agencies in WeBase. The three agencies involved in the lab business scenarios are the Bank 1, which is the issuing bank, act as an agency A. Secondly, the engineering tire supplier, that is the exporter, acts as agency B. Lastly, the first auto car manufacturer, that is the importer, acts as agency C. This table shows the business flow sequence, the role of the agencies and their activities. The last column shows the list of smart contract functions called by the organizations at different stages. In this lab, you will be importing the two smart contracts called creditletter.sol and the creditletteradmin.sol, which you have already tested in the Remix environment. The blue color indicates the functions in the credit letter admin contract, that is the create function and the split function. The black color indicates the functions in the credit letter contract that are called to perform other LC transactions at different stages. The orange color indicates the tasks that are carried outside the blockchain. Make sure all the necessary services are up and running and log into the WeBase as admin. Before importing the smart contracts into the WeBase environment, open a text editor to note down all the organization node addresses. Since you have already created the user ID for the exporter, the importer, and the bank, you will be using the corresponding organization address to call different smart contract functions from now on. To copy the address, click the copy icon and paste it into the editor as shown. Now you are going to create the smart contract from the imported contract. Firstly, open and copy the creditletter.sol code. Now click the create file icon and enter the file name. Next, paste the copied code in the file and save and compile the contract. Make sure the contract gets compiled without any errors. Similarly, create and save the credit letter admin.solidity code. You can see that the credit letter.sol is imported within the credit letter admin.solidity code. This table shows the sequence of the business flow carried out by different agencies. The list of functions shown in the column Smart Contract Activity will be called by different agencies at different stages of the business scenario as shown. You have to remember that all the agencies cannot access all the functions. The bank one is going to create the letter of credit. Here, the bank will call the create function under the credit letter admin contract and provide all the primary information required to create the LC. The key informations are the agency addresses, the timestamp, the interest rate, and the credit value. You'll be using the agency addresses which you have copied in the text editor as shown. Upon creating the LC successfully, under the log section, you can see the address of the new LC. Now, note down the LC address in the notepad. Here you can see how the enduring tire, that is the supplier, changed the LC credit value by calling the function reset credit amount. Use the LC address you stored in the text editor and enter the new credit value followed by the timestamp. You can see the parameter details in the logs. Once the LC is agreed by both the parties, the bank will approve the status of the LC by calling the set status approved function. Use the LC address and set the status as either true or false, followed by the timestamp. You can see the parameter details under the log section. The bank pays the enduring tire, that is to the exporter. This payment transaction takes place outside the blockchain. Once the payment is received, the exporter updates the payment status by calling the function setStatusPaid. The exporter uses the LC address to set the status to either true or false, followed by the timestamp. You can see the parameter details under the log session. Now the first auto, that is the importer, transfers the LC to the bank by calling the transfer function. The holder must use a valid bank address to transfer the LC. Upon successful transfer, you can see the transfer details under the log session. The bank can split the value of the LC into smaller payments by using the split function. The split function accepts three key parameters such as the original LC address, a new split value, followed by the timestamp. Here, the bank splits the original LC value worth $2,000 into two separate LCs of 900 and 1100. In the log file, you can see the new LC address for the split value. Note down the new LC address in the log session. GetInfo is a common function that can be called by any organization to check the transaction details at any point of time. You can check the value of the LC by providing the appropriate LC address. Here, using the getInfo function, you can see the two different LC values by passing the original LC address and the split LC address as an input parameter as shown.